Hello everybody, welcome. I'm No O2 and thanks for watching this video. I have here an Act 2 quick play melee deck for No Hope, Nightmare viable as well. The idea is that you're playing in quick play with 3 random strangers, and so here is a deck that allows you to be a melee character, but also compensate for the fact that you have 3 random teammates and things like that. But I have sort of a confession. Please check the timestamp for the melee cards, where I talk about the melee cards that we have in this deck and how this is a melee deck, because you might be looking at it and thinking, I don't see a whole lot of melee cards. I'll talk more specifically about them there, but at this point in time, going through a little journey here, my confession is that I think I'm boring. I think I'm boring when it comes to these melee decks. I feel like there's so many corners that you can cut. There's so much noise when it comes to the melee decks that I've seen other people run and use and things like that. And I'll talk about it more, but for the most part, I got it down, I think, really to a science that there's a lot of quality of life stuff for the melee cards. But as far as like why we should run melee, I sort of just have them down here. And I've been struggling to find like more interesting sort of creative ways to sort of fit melee into a quick play deck where like you have to compensate or have lots of different tools because you don't know what your teammates are going to be doing. So I feel like the melee decks are going to fall a little flat as far as like just having melee cards. So please go check out that timestamp. That's basically just labeled the melee cards because they're all clumped together right at the end here. We'll start at the top though, as per usual. Hazard pay. If you trust yourself and not your teammates, hazard pay. If you trust your teammates and think they're going to do okay, run share the wealth. If you're feeling extraordinarily lucky, run money grubbers, because a lot of the times money grubbers doesn't trigger as often as you think it's going to. In fact, it needs cost of avarice or multiple hives in a row to even have a chance of competing with hazard pay or especially share the wealth. Offensive scavenger for the extra throwables. You cannot die if you have extra things to throw. Double grenade pouch, bomb squad, improvised explosives, demolitions expert. We take an extra step into the grenade damage here because Act 2 has lots of extra bosses. And in general, you know, No Hope is going to have lots of extra bosses as well. We sort of take that little bit of an extra step, an extra 50% damage here for the grenades, so that when we do eventually get our purple grenades, and that is what you're hoping for, you're always hoping for purple grenades. In fact, I wouldn't even contribute to the team money if they were like, oh yeah, we can upgrade our quick slot. Nope, I'm not going to do it. Don't contribute your money. Getting purple grenades is critical. It's so important for Act 2, and so we have a little bit of extra damage here in our grenades to help with that, as well as extra things to throw and blah, blah, blah. We love Bomb Squad for the extra grenade, like literally the extra grenade, because this is going to be our primary way of dealing with mutations. Being a melee deck, our secondary weapon is going to be pretty much exclusively used for killing zombies. Our primary weapon and our grenades is going to be the way that we help contribute to the team to dealing with bosses and big scary mutations, and our grenades can be a big part of that. Marked for Death. I have come to really love Marked for Death in these melee decks, because things are happening, chaos is happening, right? But you should ideally, most of the time, be having your melee weapon out in your hand and you're swinging it, you know, like a buccaneer and etc. Marked for Death, the reason why I love it so much, Marked for Death allows you to contribute to helping your team eliminate bosses and mutations while still holding your melee weapon in your hand. You don't got to do anything silly like running Sunder and you're trying to run up and punch a melee, you know, a mutation or whatever. Like, it's just not a big deal, right? So, Marked for Death as an additional way, again, that this damage is also multiplicative with our grenade damage stuff, but also helps the team in general. That's a little 40% damage team boost, essentially, for dealing with mutations and bosses, and that's really good for Act 2, because there's lots and lots of bosses. We got Fire in the Hole, Run Like Hell, pretty much the 2 best sprint cards in the game, but Fire in the Hole is just lots of extra temporary health in general. 80 extra temporary health to begin with, plus whatever we find with Offensive Scavenger. Find a smoke grenade, no one's going to pick that up and throw it, right? Well, you can. Pick it up, throw it, 20 points of temporary health. It's very nice. Cross trainers. We're skipping out here on superior cardio because we actually want the stamina regen over the sprint efficiency. Though we are sort of cutting a corner here as far as our ability to run around. So being able to solo clutch missions like Broken Bird, going to be a little bit harder. But for the most part, if your teammates are not super, super bad. Between Vanguard and stuff like that and well rested, that you can hopefully sort of keep your teammates healthy enough that they're not always dying. You will not always be in a position where you'll need to solo clutch things. And then in that case as well, like when it comes to solo clutching, typically it's running away from zombies. That's the issue. Vanguard Battleless melee weapon actually is an alternative way for us to sort of brute force our way through a mission as opposed to sprinting all the time. What we really care about is just having our stamina regen as fast as possible, but we still get that extra bit of health. The movement speed is actually quite nice for sort of dancing around with the melee weapon, sort of doing the nuance back and forth and swinging at the correct times and things like that, doing a little melee dance. Cross Trainers helps with all of that, plus a little extra 5% or 5 bonus points of health, a little cherry on top. That's why we have Cross Trainers over Superior Cardio again. Now the melee cards. When it comes to melee, where's like Mugger, right? Or not Mugger. Where is it at? Where's Slugger? Right, when it comes to like melee stamina efficiency, when you swing your melee weapon, it costs less stamina. Melee attack speed, things like that. Melee damage. Not so much melee damage, but melee stamina efficiency and melee attack speed. They're sort of they're crutches. You can compensate for them. The only scenario in which you would desperately want more melee attack speed is if you're fighting a horde of zombies out in the open. 360 zombies in every direction. The ability to swing faster, deal more damage, essentially have more DPS, and be able to swing without getting tired, really only benefits you in some very niche situations where it's just like, oh crap, the only way out of here is to swing your sword super fast, generate more health than you're taking damage, and sort of brute force your way through it. I find for the most part, if you just play it smart and your teammates aren't, again, not super horrible, you just don't really find yourself in a situation like that. I find, really, as long as you have a good positioning, a good hallway, a good doorway, or just any sort of half a corner, you can sort of compensate for the stamina efficiency and melee attack speed by just good movement. Step forward, step back. You can even sneak in a couple of punches every once in a while if you feel like you're getting really overwhelmed, you need more crowd control. But for the most part, you just swing, you step forward, you swing, you get the slice and dice, you back up, you swing, you back up, you swing, step forward, swing. Again, there's like this little dance, and basically being really good at this dance where you're sort of like stepping forward and swinging and stepping back and swinging and sort of doing this ebb and flow with the horde of zombies as they're sort of pushing in on you, and you slice them up and push them out again. As you get used to this ebb and flow, right, you find your center, and surely you're going to win. You just don't need these things. You just don't need them because you can literally just like by skill and practice compensate for melee attack speed and melee stamina efficiency. In fact, I find that for the most part, if you want to swing your sword more often before getting tired, just flat stamina, I think, is almost in general better for the most part. Though I will say there's a nice argument for running at least one melee stamina efficiency card, but stacking multiple, it's just not really worth it because obviously the stamina that you currently have also benefits from stamina efficiency, but for the most part, you just don't need those things, and I find that you can be rather successful just cutting them out. It's why I was just like, I feel like we're running a melee deck, but we're not running any of the fun melee cards, right? We're not swinging faster, swinging forever, right? Berserker is kind of fun, but it's pretty niche, and even in how it's used, and we're not slicing up bosses with this deck. It's just I feel like all the fun melee cards are not there sometimes. And I'm worried for you guys that you guys might think like, oh man, these melee decks are boring. But I don't know, I'm enjoying them a little bit. But for the most part, you just don't need a lot of these melee cards. The only thing we really care about, the most powerful thing that you could do with a melee deck, or do with a melee weapon, is generate health for your teammates, health for yourself, recover your trauma. And then we run well rested, so that if we take damage, have any bit of extra trauma here, this health that we are regenerating is turned into temporary health. In fact, since we got well rested, Face Your Fears, I feel like is not that good anymore. Because well rested, not only does it allow us to turn our health generated into temporary health, it also allows Vanguard to turn into temporary health for our teammate. Basically recreating what Vanguard was originally before it got nerfed. And that's super important, I think. That was like the reason to run melee a lot of the times. It's just like, And it doesn't take that many cards to invest. So a melee weapon almost already, out the gate, inherently is very good about dealing with the horde of zombies. But we are not going to invest any extra cards into dealing with mutations. It takes a lot of cards. Again, we have 3 random teammates. We can't commit too heavily to any one particular tool, because if we lack a variety of tools, and our teammates don't compensate for those weaknesses, we're going to be in a world of hurt. Things like that. So with this deck, again, for quick play, we can do a little bit of everything. A little bit of everything. And one of those tools that we have is the ability to use our melee weapon to keep ourselves and our teams extra healthy. If they're, especially if you play smart, which I know you do, and if your teammates play smart, which sometimes they don't, for the most part, you can compensate for a lot of mistakes that they make. I've said in the past where a melee character, or not a melee, a support character, investing into medkits and healing efficiency and things like that, like, you can go all in on it. But for the most part, if your teammates are making a bunch of mistakes, you might be able to heal them 500 HP per medkit or something ridiculous, right? Or whatever it is, I don't know. But eventually they just die. They just die. You just can't out heal bad teammates to some extent, right? And so here we just have Vanguard, Battle Less, Well Rested. And so long as we can keep swinging, we can keep healing, and it's quite nice. And for the most part, I've come to this conclusion of just like, this is for the most part all you need for a melee deck. These 3 cards I think are a great value, bang for your buck. Infinite health in theory for yourself, for your teammates, and that can be translated into temporary health, healing them over their trauma and things like that. We would love to have Fit as a Fiddle here, but I'm too scared to cut out any of the other cards. This is the nice quality of life card as far as like beginning to walk out of the very first mission with the ability to generate extra temporary health, and to do so for our teammates, but potentially preventing a lot of trauma. It feels too supporty at this point for me. I will say, though, if you want to pull out Amped Up and put in Fit as a Fiddle, I think there can be an argument made there. And even for Amped Up, if you feel like you're running out of ammo, consider running On Your Mark. But I absolutely highly encourage you that for the most part, you either run Amped Up or you run On Your Mark. Act 2, especially, comparatively to all of the other acts, has the most scripted horde events, right? Whether it's be a nest or a bunch of alarmed doors in your way, or Unbroken Bird. When the helicopter shows up and the helicopter is hovering over a crate, it periodically calls in a horde event. That's the infinite horde event on that finale, is the helicopter calling it a horde event, and every time it happens, it triggers On Your Mark and Amped Up. And so, for the most part, in that finale, as well as in the finale for the Armory, those are infinite horde events that trigger Amped Up or On Your Mark. And so on Act 2 specifically, there's some missions where these cards can trigger literally infinitely for the entire finale. So having enough health to go through these missions and keeping yourself healthy, and the more healthy you are, that means that more often you're going to be turning your health into temporary health and things like that. So there's just, in Act 2 specifically, there's just so much value in having like Amped Up or On Your Mark on these missions, because there's just a crap ton of scripted horde events. So this is a quick play melee deck for Act 2. When it comes to your primary weapon, I would recommend that you run any gun that's good at killing mutations. Whatever you feel comfortable with for the most part, right? But for the most part, you're going to be holding your melee weapon out. And it's quite fun. It's quite fun, especially a little tangent here, a little tangent. If you see somebody on your team out there, you people, and they got a melee weapon, and they swing it, and they eliminate a zombie, and you see them glow green, and you see your health bar go up, stop shooting your gun. Melee is sort of like the anti-fun deck, because it means it encourages your team to stop playing the game and just stand next to the guy who is meleeing everything. But it's just more efficient to do it that way, right? Saves ammo and it gives health to everybody. But essentially, if you see someone running a melee deck and they're generating health as they're swinging it, you just sort of stop. You let them do it. That's the smart thing to do. No hope is hard. So if you're struggling with no hope, you got to min-max. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see you in the future.